Thank you so much, Dan. Thank you. And I think I'll pick up from where Jennifer left. Guardrails is very important. Data center is one thing for North America. AI in automotive security also requires a lot of guardrails, and that's where GRC is very critical for all of us, irrespective of OEM, tier one or tier two across the supply chain. Hello, everyone. I'm Sai again. I'm passionate about GRC in the automotive industry with a background in cybersecurity. And I have done research in ISO SA 21434. And a little bit of consulting experience with different OEMs. So today I would like to present governing AI security on wheels based on public research and industry frameworks. So happy again, and I'm sure a lot of you must be following the automotive news that's being published every week, every day. We have something or the other, and just last week, 3 companies announced that they are joining forces to put level 4 robotaxis on roads globally. One bringing the vehicle platform, the other one bringing the AI driver, and one bringing the mobility network. So if you notice, the ecosystem is changing strategically from just a single maker. The whole ecosystem is now converging on the idea that you scale autonomy through this ecosystem. Here's the question I really want to sit with during this session. When the AI comes from one company, the vehicle from another, as we discussed, and the platform, all are connected by APIs, right? And Dan is the API guru here, all making safety critical decisions. It governs the security of the whole supply chain. And that's what we are here to talk about. Every car on the road is a physical AI system on wheels, AI that makes physical tensions running on APIs, which is the central nervous system. It changes everything about how we govern the security. So in the next 25 minutes, let's see what has changed, the evidence, attack surface, and how we govern and assess it. Next slide, please. Yeah, here it is. Okay. So the point of this is that we have moved from closed proprietary systems to software-defined AI platforms, updated continuously via APIs. From physical local risks to remote manipulations through API attack vectors, where we see about 92% of the attacks based on upstream report. One-time type approval was the most common thing, but not anymore. Continuous obligations, CSMS R156, and we have the new BIS rule, which requires stringent obligations to be followed. And hardware supply chain, AI models and APIs from third parties, now a global security issue as well. So the vehicle has changed. The question is whether our governance has changed. So the attack surface is vehicles has fundamentally changed, but our security and governance models haven't fully caught up. So let's walk through the 4 key shifts here. So first, we moved from closed to proprietary systems to software-defined AI. And so we need to ask ourselves the 4 key questions. You already run a CSMS. You already do TARA. Here's the question. Does your TARA actually cover adversarial AI inputs and API attack vectors? Does your CSMS treat AI models as security events under R156? And when an API makes one wrong call, who's accountable? Like we had the discussion, who's going to take in the previous session, who's going to take the accountability first? Are we ready to answer that? The frameworks, weren't written for AI reasoning and API first design. So it's not a limitation of the framework. It's about how we extend it to cover AI and APIs. So why does governance need to stretch to AI and APIs based on that? Today, as we just see here, the evidence is all from the public reports. AI and APIs are the dominant attack vectors. About 494 cybersecurity incidents were recorded in 2025, and 92% of attacks were remote. 86 doesn't need physical proximity. So the attack surface has clearly moved beyond the vehicle to connected API-driven systems. Second, 67% of incidents targeted telematics and cloud. So in effect, APIs have become the nervous system of the vehicle ecosystem. And this trend is accelerating. So AI in Crux is expanding the attack surface and accelerating attackers, but it also has the potential to significantly strengthen our defenses. So this is not incremental, it's a structural shift, and there's a dual force to play. So the key takeaway on this API and AI attack surface is every AI capability sits on an API layer, and every layer is introducing a GRC risk. So let me highlight a few that are most relevant from here. First is the ADAS. The risk is adversarial inputs, where perception models can be manipulated through crafted data. Then comes our OTA updates. Complying with R156 is a necessity, and we are dealing with model integrity, tampered updates, unauthorized changes. And therefore, regulatory expectations are difficult to maintain continuously. The third, telematics and cloud. This is where the supply chain is becoming very critical. APIs connecting with third-party ecosystems, aligning closely with emerging requirements like the BIS rule. In the case that we saw in the recent news that I mentioned at the beginning of the session, it is very important that these emerging requirements are closely tied to BIS rules and all the other regulations, making a unified approach to the entire regulatory landscape. But the meta point is that every row has an API in the middle, and AI gets the headlines, right? But the API is how the attacker actually reaches it. Just to be clear, we all know the internal attack surface is CAN, the ECUs, gateways. Yeah, those really matter, but we really need to focus on the AI and API layer, as you could say, because that's where the governance gaps are the widest right now when we do the threat modeling to prioritizing the remediations in order to prepare the work products for meeting the regulatory expectations and compliance. Yeah. So if you can see, this slide is talking about who owns this and how do we score what we are managing. Ownership is the foremost important aspect. Who is going to own the AI and API risk across the supply chain? Because it's everyone's problem, but it quickly becomes no one's problem, right? Who is going to take accountability for this? So this has to be clearly defined across engineering, product, legal, and the executives before an incident forces that decision. So this governance has to run across the life cycle from concept to decommissioning, and that's what 21434 also states. Because AI models and APIs are constantly evolving, and this needs visibility. As Jennifer was rightly mentioning, artificial intelligence aren't just intelligent artificially, but then they're just technical. They have safety and legal implications as well. And so they will lead to failures. So leadership needs structured, consistent risk reporting. And finally, third-party risk evaluation is must. A lot of tier one, tier two suppliers may not have the comprehensive third-party risk assessment that we all expect as OEMs to comply with. So your vehicle is only as secure as the weakest vendor API or or AI model. So that's why supply chain risk, especially in AI, is getting so much regulatory attention now. I know Europe has EU AI Act. We have NIST AI RMF. We are trying to converge with the automotive product specific regulatory standards as well to ensure we have a comprehensive risk assessment so that governance and compliance is clear right from the concept of a product. So now on the right, we actually need to understand how it is scored. And a lot of you who are familiar with the CAL process, this is quite debatable, but yes, cybersecurity assurance level is still required. It is to determine the impact and how feasible the attack is, with CAL 4 being the most severe. So when you look at it that way, the top risks stand out. Adversarial AI through APIs and insecure API authentication, both at CAL 4. Then you have OTA integrity and supply chain risks, at CAL 3. So the pattern is pretty clear. The risk isn't just the AI, it's how it's exposed and accessed. Therefore, we need to understand how do we assess this systematically, and that's Thara, which is used in the industry broadly today. So the question is, how do we go from identifying these threats to actually managing them? So we don't need a new framework. We all understand the Thara process from asset identification to risk treatment that we just saw, where we had the CAL values being determined. And this is the approach that's mandated by 21434 in clause 15. But if you take something like Stride and apply it to AI and APIs, the risks become very concrete. But how comprehensive are we including the API and AI adversarial attack scenarios within this threat modeling? And how robust is the entire posture from the governance and risk management perspective is the critical question we need to ask today. So this leads to a bigger point. We have separated safety and security, where we say HARA is identifying hazards and Thara identifies cyber threats. But with AI, the line starts to blur because AI can behave unsafely even without a direct attack, which means the risk now lives inside the AI itself. So we do see the robotaxis behaving weirdly. It stops, there are bugs, but the line starts to blur without the attack here. And that's why safety and security are no longer separate problems. It has to be handled in a unified approach for a comprehensive security for the vehicle itself. I'm sure that all of us have different challenges in having this convergence for meeting both the safety and the security standards, because the compliance is going to be different for different practices. Do you see the next slide? Sorry, Dan, I don't see the slide.
Oh, are we missing a slide in here?
Do you see the slide?
Yeah, it's on the screen for me. The how compliance cascades.
Exactly. But I don't see it. I only see a size slides and slide #8 with a blue screen.
Oh, that's weird. I can see it. Can folks in the chat let us know if the slides are coming through? I can. Are we? Now I
I
didn't know.
see the
What do you see?
I see the regulatory landscape slide now.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see it now. Yeah.
All right. Very good.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. So once we understand the risks, the next question is, how does compliance actually work in practice? At a high level, compliance could cascade across the supply chain, but accountability doesn't disappear. So the OEM still holds the certificate, CSMS, UNR 156 sums, and owns the vehicle level accountability, but the accountability is distributed. Tier 1 suppliers support through things like the cybersecurity interface agreement, where component level responsibilities and evidences are defined. And then at the bottom of the stack, you have SOC and AI providers, where they bring in hardware security, model integrity, and out of the context security evidence. So it's a chain, but yeah, it's a connected chain. And the backbone that holds this together is a cybersecurity interface agreement. And that's what defines who does what across the ecosystem. Because under 214, ISO SA 21434, if responsibilities aren't explicitly assigned, those gaps don't disappear. It rolls back to the OEM. And this is where the AI and API gap actually starts to show up. So most CIAs were written for hardware and firmware, but now AI models and APIs are coming from third parties. So who owns the risk of an adversarial input or a tampered model? If an agreement doesn't clearly say, the OEM inherits that risk legally. And it's scary to know that. So putting all of this together, what does this actually mean in practice for us? AI is just another feature? No, it's not. It fundamentally changes the attack surface and, most importantly, how risk flows through the ecosystem, as we just saw. And governance has to catch up. We already have the frameworks needed. The gap is whether we are fully extending them to cover the AI and API-driven risks. And accountability has to be explicit. So compliance becomes simple. Because in a distributed supply chain, if ownership isn't clearly defined, the risk doesn't disappear. It defaults back to the OEM. So finally, this is really about the convergence of security, safety, and AI governance. Is no longer a separate conversation. They are becoming one integrated problem and need to be managed that way. So if you ask me what is the takeaway here, the attack surface has changed. How has our governance changed with it? So the question becomes, where does your organization actually stand? Is it reactive, aware, defined? And this is where these things actually start to mature at level 3. Tara is extended to AI and APIs, and ownership starts getting defined through CIAs. And level 4, risk is actively scored, monitored, and visible to leadership, aligned with regulatory expectations. So level 5, where optimization and continuous improvement with safety and security fully aligned, integrated, proactively for meeting the regulatory expectations. And that's the ideal state we all want to be. And here's a gap you're seeing across the industry. Most OEMs are already at level 3 or 4 for traditional cybersecurity. But with emerging trends, with AI and API governance, they are still closer to level 2 or 3. I would be surprised if we are at level 4 or level 5 across the industry. And that's the gap. So I feel it's important that we close the gap. And that's what governing AI security on wheels is really important. So, based on the trends and tensions that we see in the industry, software-defined vehicles, every AI update is now a security and regulatory event. The BIS rule made supply chains a board-level GRC issue. And the industry requires people who speak both languages. I think that with the dance community's support, we should be working closely together to bridge this gap. And looking ahead, as vehicle adopts AI agents that don't just answer but act, protocols like MCP let those agents call tools and APIs autonomously. That's the next undergoverned attack surface. The governance principles doesn't change. I think your TARA and CIAs need to treat the agent tool calls as assets and threat vectors as well. It's early in automotive, but it cannot be ignored. It's exactly where the attack surface is heading. With that in mind, I think we'll all move to a proactive, optimized state of having a more mature and robust risk posture across the ecosystem. So with that, I would like to give the 4 takeaways, practical actions for every role in this community. We need to update CIAs, integrate TARA and HARA, extend TARA to cover adversarial AI inputs. Consider BIS role, especially for North America, and EU AI Act may not be applicable to North America, but it's still good to take the required controls from there to make this a much more comprehensive approach. With that, I would like to say, put the whole discussion for Q&A. And I hope you all reflect on the topmost 3 things. If our TARA covers AI and API attack vectors, CIAs assign AI model risks, and does your CSMS treat AI model updates as security events? Well, governing AI security on wheels is not optional anymore. The frameworks you run are important to stretch to cover AI and APIs. As we've been discussing the last 20 minutes, the industry needs to treat cybersecurity the way it treats crash safety and not a differentiator. Well, thank you everyone for patiently listening, and I hand it over to Dan for any questions in the community. Thank you so much. Look forward to collaborate.
Oh, thank you, Sai. Fantastic content. And it's interesting your last message around treating it like crash safety. I should have mentioned at the beginning, I actually started my whole career in safety and crash worthiness. So I worked at General Motors. I was a safety and crash engineer. I used to design airbags and then smash things up, and we see what would happen, right? And that is not so different, I guess, than this new flavor of security that we deal with today. I mean, we had all kinds of testing and planning and regulations and all of that with regard to vehicle crash worthiness. Do you see a parallel when it comes to AI and security governance?
So if I had to, there is a parallel in AI and security governance, but yeah, I think it's time that we cannot differentiate anymore. Um, we have to treat them as robust as possible, starting from the concept phase, ensure the AI features are treated, um, without blurring the safety and security aspect of it.
You know, there was a lot of chatter in the comments area, and one of the topics, I'll bring this up from Baba, who should ultimately own AI risk in an organization? And this sparked a whole lot of debate, and I'm kind of curious where you land on this.
Protect yourself, protect the organization where you work for. So ensure everything is explicitly stated in the CIA. So at least to the bare minimum, legally, you are safe. that's that's the most important thing that I would think of. And
Yeah.
as I said, the SOCs, the companies that are working on SOCs and those AI tools, we need to ensure we have complete transparency when it comes to the risk and compliance uh, of their security posture when we do business with them.
Well, you made it. I like that comment, right? Like protect your company. And so we have these new regulatory frameworks. You know, you mentioned EU AI Act, and there's 21434 and all of these things. And I'm reminded many decades ago when I was doing crash, where we had the FMVSS safety standards for
Right.
crash testing and things like that. But what was interesting was, in order to sell a vehicle, you had to pass these tests, right? And so those were mandatory, non-optional. You know, if you don't pass the test, you don't get to sell the vehicle. So we made sure we passed the test. But I found, I mean, back then the tests were pretty like blunt, right? Like we were only testing certain dummy sizes and shapes, and only in certain conditions. We even used to do testing with no seatbelts on because we assumed the occupant wasn't going to bother putting their seatbelt on, which meant we had to make the airbags much more powerful,
Absolutely.
and it created all kinds of other problems. I remember in the 90s, people were being killed by airbags. So the regulation is one thing, but you talked about, protect your company. I mean, I think we all have to go beyond the letter of the law and really try to achieve the right outcomes.
Absolutely. I think, as you said, when we start converging or working together with regulatory obligations such as FMVSS and comply with 26262 ISO standard for safety, I think that is exactly what we need to ensure, because safety and security is no more two distinct aspects to our industry. We'll have to work towards um, meeting both, most critical factors without any excuse. So it has to be as comprehensive as possible,
Yeah.
to put it that way. So we need to have champions from both sides to take it forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, with that, Sai, thank you again. I really so grateful for you to be here. The
Thank you,
topic
Dan.
was
Thank you.
fabulous.
I hope the content was useful. Happy to connect. Thank you so much.